All right, welcome to the applicable section, part 4 of controlling and changing habits. This is going to be a simple yet effective lecture. We're going to talk about some simple methods that you can use, and I highly recommend you use those and take notes of those because we're going to talk about some roots, the root of the problem, the root of the habit, why we do what we do, why you're doing the habits you're doing, and why you can't install the new habits. There's a reason. There's a reason, if you do know the reason, then you'll have better control over it. So let's get to it. The root method. How do you apply it? Well, this method is a two-sided method. Once used properly, it can be life-changing. And this is a method, it's probably one of the most popular methods used by my clients. Now, at the core of every habit, there are two things. Why you are doing the habit, or why you might skip the habit. The first one is why you're doing the habit. This is related to the habits that you are doing, obviously. And why you might skip the habit, this is related to the habits that you're trying to install, but you haven't been that successful with it yet. Now, the root method demands a high level of self-awareness. It's simple, but it's not easy. You need to be aware of the problem that's holding you back. I cannot figure out what your problem is, what the root of the problem is, but I can assure you, with some self-reflection, you can find the root of the problem. First off, talking about why you're doing a certain habit, well, just ask yourself, why are you doing it? What is it bringing you? What kind of pleasure is it bringing you? What needs is it satisfying, right? When you ask yourself those questions and you close your eyes for a second and just inspect what your body, what your physiology and what your psychology are saying, you'll be able to get closer and closer to the answer. For some of you, the answer might be so embedded into your subconscious brain that it's hard for you to really point out the problem. And if that's the case, then you probably will not be able to use the root method effectively. And if you do want, feel free to email me and I can see how I can help you further along with that. But there is a problem. And once you identify it, ask yourself, why are you doing it? Why are you doing the habit? And why do you need this habit to satisfy the certain needs, right? Once the problem is in front of you, once you're aware of it, it's easier to play around with it. And also, why you might skip a certain habit. Let's say you're trying to implement a new habit, reading, fitness, meditation, whatever it is, and you find yourself skipping the habit sometimes, and you can't keep up the consistency. Well, ask yourself why. Do you even enjoy the habit? What does it bring you? Does it bring you pain? Does it bring you pleasure? Does it bring you excitement, enjoyment? How do you feel when you do it? Ask yourself these questions. So when you do, you're going to start identifying some stuff. I remember one of my clients who was trying to install the habit of running. He wanted to improve his cardio. He wanted to run more and he wanted to have, better health in general. And he wasn't able to stick to it. And I asked him, how do you feel when you want to go for a run? He says, well, usually I feel excited. I love running and I want that. I really want that. And I said, how do you feel when you come back? He said, usually I go for a long run and when I come back, I'm pretty tired and I'm drained. And I said, do you not see the problem? And he smiled. He saw the problem. And this is what I want you to do. The problem for him was that he gets excited to do it. And then as he's doing it, he's overdoing it. That he's getting tired and drained and he's losing all the motivation. He gets back home just feeling like he just wants to sit on his couch and do nothing. And obviously, this doesn't bring the right emotions that he needed in order for him to install the habit properly. And I said, how long do you run for? He said about 45 minutes to an hour. I said, okay, what we're going to do is you're going to reduce that. You're going to go for 20 minutes to 30 minutes and see how you feel when you get home. And when I saw him later on, he said that he's been running consistently every day and that now he's running again for 45 minutes to an hour, but now he's not tired anymore. He was running for 20 to 30 minutes for a couple weeks, and then he started upping his time by 5 minutes and 5 minutes and 5 minutes. And when I saw him 2, 3 months later, he went back to 45 minutes to an hour. But now, when he does it and he comes back home, he's not tired, he's not drained. In the contrary, he feels more energized and he feels ready and he feels more motivated to do more. So this is an example of a root of a problem. Now, the second thing you want to identify is the goal or the motivation that keeps you going. Why do you want to install the new habit, or why do you want to stop it? All right? What's the motivation behind it? What's the goal? Another client of mine, she used to smoke a lot, and she'd been smoking for a long time. Now, what happened was I asked her, why do you want to stop? And she just said, I just don't like it. Right? She said, I don't like it. I'm like, all right, well, what don't you like about it? Like the smell, the taste, yada, yada, yada. But obviously, there is physical dependency on nicotine that's keeping her hooked. And the goal was to find a source of motivation that's greater than just the fact that she doesn't like it, right? And I went deeper into it. I'm like, all right, well, you don't like the smell of it, but you smoke a lot. She's like, yeah, well, it's not just me that doesn't like the smell. My husband doesn't like the smell on me, and I feel like it's a bit repulsive. And I said, okay, well, let's look at it another way. What if you always smell like cigarettes? How will your husband react to that, right? And she said, he would tell me to brush my teeth or eat a gum, this and that, because he really hates smoking. He doesn't even like the smell. And I said, well, do you think that this can lead to him, getting to such a discomfortable situation where he might, it might create issues in your relationship? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, so it's not just that you don't like smoking, but this is also something that can jeopardize your relationship. She said, yes, that's true. And I said, well, what else don't you like about it? She said, well, I just feel tired all the time whenever I want to do some sports, or even going up a flight of stairs, I just feel winded. And I'm like, all right, so you do understand that stopping will put you in better health, and that soon enough your lungs will recover and you'll have better health. And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, now what we're doing is we're reshaping the way you look at your motivation and the goals behind your motivation. And I explained to her the root method and the root system. And as soon as she started applying it, whenever she craved a cigarette, she didn't just say, oh, I don't like it, but I'm craving it, it's okay. She started thinking about her health. She started thinking that if I smoke that now, I'm going to keep going with the same cycle of being tired every time I want to walk or go for a run or climb up a flight of stairs. She started thinking that her husband will not appreciate it and that she might jeopardize her relationship and that she doesn't want to do that to her kids. And before she knows it, her motivation and her goals were greater than just the fact that she's craving a cigarette. And it didn't happen immediately, but this method itself reduced the amount that she was smoking by a whole lot, right? And this is just another example how you can look at things. If the problem is more influential than the goal, then you have no shot at effectively implementing the habit, and vice versa. I hope you guys understood this method, as it's really important. And if you want to use this method, make sure to do it. Get a notebook, close your eyes, do some self-reflection, ask yourself the questions that I told you about, and write down the answers, and then analyze the answers. Try to find the problem, or try to find a source of motivation or a goal that are highly compelling, that you really want, that you really desire, and you'll find a significant change. Now, I also want to talk about two methods that are simple that you can use. I used them a lot in the past. They're based on result variation, which aims for breaking down blocks into sections and sections into pieces. First off, the ABC methods. And we previously talked about having micro and macro goals. And this is kind of tied to that, because now we're going to take it up a notch with this system, and you'll have a habit-related goal linked to each and every one of those letters. The goal will vary in intensity and difficulty. If you fail to achieve A, you can still achieve B or C. If you fail to achieve A and B, you can still achieve C. And make sure that even though the intensity is different, that the goal is one and all the same. What do I mean by that? I know for some of you, this might not make any sense. But what happens is, you will set a scale for your habit. Let's say you're trying to implement the habit of reading, all right? And you want to read, your ultimate goal is to read one book a week. But as we said before, you want to take baby steps. You can't just start by reading half a book a day. It's going to be hard and you're going to lose the discipline and the willpower. And before you know it, you're going to drop it. So what you do is you start with the ABC method. A is the biggest and most difficult goal, which is, let's say, to read, as a start, 50 pages a day. The B is to read half of that, 25 pages a day. And the C is just the minimal for you to keep up the consistency, which is reading 5 pages a day. Now, if you had a day where you're feeling energized and motivated, then there's no stress and you're just feeling you're good to go, you can read 50 pages, then do it. But if you had days where you're feeling a bit tired, then you don't have to stretch yourself and drain your willpower. You can go for B. You do, a less challenging habit. And if you have a day where you're just feeling absolutely horrible and something happened and you're feeling stressed or depressed, this is not where it ends. You can still take 5 to 10 minutes and apply the C habit. This way, you will keep up the consistency, the goal is one and all the same, and you will make sure that you are not failing because your goal is not too big, it's not too small. The goal is related to how you feel and how well you can perform. And that's one of the biggest reasons people fail with certain habits. I have a friend of mine, actually, not a client, a friend of mine, who wanted to read more because he saw how much I'm reading and how much I'm learning. He wanted to do the same, and that's about 4 or 5 years ago. And he started off with the goal of reading a book a week, what we talked about. So he had to read, on average, a day, about 75 to 90 pages. And I said, look, that's a big goal as a start. And he said, no, I got this, I can do it. And obviously, we saw each other after a couple weeks, and he said, I said, well, how's reading going? He said, man, it's taking too much of my time. I don't think it's the right time to do it. And then I told him about the ABC method, and he's been just reading nonstop ever since, because now we have a system in place, right? He could not read 75 to 90 pages a day when he's first starting off. But as soon as he picked up the habit and his subconscious brain got used to the fact that he reads every single day, then depending on how he felt, as I said, he read 50, 60, 70, all the way up to I don't know how many pages. But you can see how this method can help you stay anchored towards your goal, and at the same time, it takes your mind state and how you feel and what you're thinking about into consideration, so this doesn't stop you. So the way you feel and the way you think doesn't kind of create an obstacle in front of your habit. Now, the other method is called the 1 minute rule. And this system is particularly effective when dealing with procrastination. Now, every time you want to procrastinate on a habit or a goal or something you need to do, you will follow this method. And make sure that you repeat the method. The only way to condition it and for it to become a system in your brain, you need repetition. So what happens is, whenever you need to do something and you become aware of thoughts related to procrastination, linked to a certain task or a habit, you will take action for 1 minute only. All right? What do I mean by that? Let's say you have something to do. You have homework or you have a project for work and you're just not feeling it. You just want to procrastinate. You don't feel like doing it, right? Well, that's understandable. Say to yourself, again, don't tyrannize yourself, negotiate with yourself. Say to yourself, all right, we're not going to do it. We're going to procrastinate. Accept it. But we're going to work on it for 1 minute only. And I don't care if you have these intense levels of willpower and discipline, or you have a tiny bit, you can do something for 1 minute. You can pick yourself up and just say, all right, I'm going to work on this essay for 1 minute only, and then that's it. All right? And then your subconscious brain will say, okay, well, we'll work on that for 1 minute and then I can go do whatever I want. But here's the thing. Usually, all we need to keep going is to take the first step. As soon as you sat down, you opened your computer and you started typing for a minute regarding a topic in your essay, you'll find that now that you're actually doing it, you feel that it's okay to keep going and keep going until you get tired and you stop. Or you have paperwork you need to finish up for work. Take 1 minute, sit on your desk and start by organizing the documents that you have and the paperwork that you have. And before you know it, you'll find yourself there in front of your paperwork, ready to work. Everything is in front of you and everything's organized. You'll find a tendency to keep going. And this might not always happen, but with repetition, the 1 minute rule can be highly effective when it comes to eliminating procrastination or just doing any habit in general. You want to meditate and it hasn't been working out that greatly for you? Awesome. Well, start the habit. And whenever you feel like you don't want to do it, just say, okay, I'm just going to sit in my room, close my eyes, and focus on my breathing for 1 minute, just for 1 minute. And when you do it, and then you start feeling yourself getting relaxed, feeling yourself getting a bit more calm, you will keep going for 3, 4, 5 minutes. Even if you just did it for 1 minute, even if you just did it for 1 minute, even if you just did it for 1 minute, you are keeping up the consistency. Your subconscious brain is soaking in the information. And that's how this method can help. Now, I know this lecture was pretty long, but the methods discussed, I wanted to take the time to discuss them because I don't want any of you to not understand what I'm talking about. And by now, I think everything I talked about was pretty clear. If anything is not really clear, go back to the examples I gave you, and the examples will help you understand the methods a lot better. And now we're going to go to the last applicable section, which is the applicable section, part 5 of controlling and changing your habits. I'll see you all there.